So vouchers is kind of an old idea. I think it's an idea that Milton Friedman introduced and really advocated for, and was a real, really fought for. I think he has a whole foundation set up in order to encourage the use of vouchers. I don't think vouchers are the solution, and I think the problem is that what vouchers do, to the extent they're successful, is save the public educational system. They actually save the existing system. They actually create this false sense of competition and innovation within these school districts, but the government is still involved in education. The government still runs these schools essentially, and the government can can reverse, they can change, they ultimately have control. So the vouchers, I think, are an attempt to take a step in the right direction, but I think what they actually do is move us away from the direction. One of the main ways they do this is the government now has to approve who gets vouchers and who doesn't. So the schools still have to fit into some box that the government gets to define. And what that means is that the government now gets to regulate private schools, because the government gets to decide which private schools get the vouchers and which private schools don't get the vouchers. Think about universities. We used to have private universities in this country, but since the government got involved and they could make any kind of decisions about who to admit and who not to admit and what criteria would be and who to give scholarships to and who not to give scholarships to and so on. Now the government is the biggest financier of student loans. So if you're a university and you want to get students who are receiving student loans, you now have to play by the government's rules. And they now determine who you can admit and who you can't admit and what the criteria are going to be in. So they now have a lot of say in what happens. And theoretically, they could have say in the curriculum that happens in university, because you don't want to upset the government because they're the ones writing the checks for the tuition. The same thing is going to happen to the schools. And that creates uniformity among universities, and it's going to create uniformity among private schools. No, what you want to advocate for, particularly right now, because I think right now Americans are open to this idea, is the complete privatization of education, getting government out of education, not getting government to be more efficient at providing education, not getting government to be better at providing education, creating pseudo-competition between government entities. You want to get the government out. And I think we should advocate for that solution. What's interesting is the voucher program has not been that successful. Here and there, it's been adopted by places, and it works where it's adopted in terms of increasing the quality. But not to a huge extent. There are marginal improvements in the quality of the schools. I'm calling for a revolution of in education, true privatization, bringing innovation and competition and technology and entrepreneurship, the kind of entrepreneurship that built the iPads and iPhones and Wi-Fi and computers and all the wonderful things that the private markets provide to us. Bring that kind of innovation and that kind of competition to schooling, to the most important activity maybe that we engage in as a civilized society, educating our young. Let's not hand that over to the least competent government. Let's embrace the most competent, a competitive, innovative, entrepreneurial free market. So I think we should go all out on this. I think we need to make the moral point that this is not the role of government. This is indeed corrupting corrupting of education. It standardizes education. It gives teachers union a huge amount of power, but it takes away choice from parents. It takes away our ability to choose what kind of education, what kind of schools, what kind of subjects our kids get to study. And it's wrong, morally wrong, for some people to finance education of other people. We should each finance education of our own kids, and then if we want to, if we choose to, we can fund education of families that can't afford it, or friends, or relatives, and so on. But then it's a choice. Then it's not government pulling out a gun and forcing me to fund an inefficient, bloated, corrupt educational system, which is government schools today.